Welcome to the Princeton Festival podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of New Jersey's premier performing arts festival.
For my eyes, a man that I despise has turned me into a man I like.
With directors, producers, artists, and supporters, we explore the creative process and the challenges of making music today. Join us on this musical adventure. My name is Eva Kastner-Puschel. I'm the host of this show. In today's episode, I'm speaking with mezzo-soprano Rebecca Roy. Rebecca is a native of northern Maine and currently working and living in Philadelphia. In 2016, Rebecca won third place in the mezzo-soprano category at the National ISTAT Fod of Wales, which was broadcasted live on BBC Wales Radio and Television. In 2018, Opera News named her a vocal standout for her performance in Puccini's Suor Angelica, singing the role of La Suora Infermiera, the sick nurse sister, at Opera Delaware. Over the past couple of years, Rebecca was a steady opera chorus member with the Princeton Festival in productions of Nixon in China, Madame Butterfly, Fidelio, to name a few, as well as a chorister and soloist in the Princeton Festival Baroque Chorus. Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for joining our podcast series.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to speak with you today. I already gave a short introduction about you. Would you like to add on to that?
I think you covered all the major points so far in my career.
Wonderful, and congratulations.
Thank you.
So you have been with the Princeton Festival for the last couple of years, singing in the opera chorus as well as the Baroque chorus. Can you tell me about your experience singing in both choirs?
I love it. I love being able to do both styles within a 1 month period and work more with the staff at Princeton Festival and with the other artists there, because I'm not the only one that overlaps between the opera chorus to Baroque chorus, so it's always fun to do something different after spending a month of our time working on an opera and putting that together and staging. It's a refreshing week to go to Baroque.
Wonderful. So you mentioned the different styles. Can you tell me and our audience what those are?
Sure. So one major difference between Baroque and opera, or in this case Baroque choral music with orchestra, is often the pieces that we do during Baroque week are not staged compared to the opera, which is staged. Mm-hmm. In Baroque, it's one of the earliest music styles, so it's a different style of singing, different types of ornaments, just a different approach in general, with instruments that are usually built in the same way that they would have during that time period as well. So string players use different types of bows and are tuned differently, and it's just a different tonality in comparison to what we know as opera to the modern ear, which is often like Puccini and the Romantic composers.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, you are a classically trained opera singer. What is the difference in your solo singing when you're singing opera in a chorus versus Baroque in a chorus or solo?
I approach it very much from the storytelling as well as technique. When I'm a chorus member in both opera and Baroque, I pay attention to what the other voice parts are doing, that basic musicianship. As a inner voice singing mezzo-soprano, alto parts, I very much pay attention to what the sopranos are doing. If they're going super high, I try to support them best I can. I like to think of it being the pillow for the voices doing the extreme notes below them, so they don't feel alone. So I think of opera chorus, the goal being a complete sound of all these voices that are trained coming together to lend their unique voice to each other to make one huge sound. And then in Baroque music, I think of how we take all of our voices and blend to come to one complete sound that sounds like one instrument instead of multiple voices, which is, there's more room to have multiple voices not sticking out, but shining in an opera chorus. And in Baroque music, your main goal is to lend a helping hand with where your voice strengths are to another singer in the chorus and have one seamless tonality of sound in a section.
Oh, that's wonderful and so beautifully explained as well.
Thank you.
Now, you have been singing in John Adams' Nixon in China and then also in Beethoven's Fidelio.
Yes.
They have very different styles and
Yes.
eras of music. So what were the challenges and your experiences there?
I think for a lot of musicians and for listeners as well, Beethoven is so steeped in our culture that it makes sense, tonality and where harmonies lie. And you can not quite predict where the music is going, but you have a general idea of the style of Beethoven. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Nixon in China, you can't really predict what's happening.
Yeah.
It is so new, which that's the exciting part of doing new music with living composers, is that you're being able to bring to life their new idea of how music should sound. Whereas with like Beethoven and other romantic composers and beyond who are no longer living, we have an idea of how it's supposed to sound, and that's what we attempt to do. But with new music, you're doing a new expression of musical sound and tonality that the composers want to get across. So there's a different type of responsibility in bringing new music to life, especially if the composer ends up at your performance. That's always fun. Mm-hmm. And doing what they wrote on the page. But with Nixon in China in particular, like, it was very rhythm had to be very precise and was not what we usually sing on a daily basis as far as how he metered things. And so counting was very much more thought out and had to take a forefront in how we approached all of the music, with meters changing every measure and harmonies not being predictable to our ear just because it's a new work.
Yes, and that's why we're so grateful to have such wonderful singers and musicians like you, because that's absolutely necessary for a production like that. But everything lines up and is rhythmically and musically in tune and correct.
It's a blast when it all comes together.
Absolutely.
Especially once you add staging and you get that dramatic effect of everyone moving in synchronized motion while singing perfectly together. It is a very exciting, thrilling moment to be on stage.
Absolutely. And I think from our audience reaction, we could gather that it was a big success.
Yes, yes.
Let's move on to something different. I have a recording of you singing the alto aria Virgam Vertotis tue from Handel's Dixit Dominos. This piece was recorded in June 2018 at Miller Chapel at the Princeton Seminary in Princeton, New Jersey, within the Princeton Festival's Baroque Chorus and Orchestra concert. Let's take a listen and then we'll talk a little bit about it, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, let's stop it here. Now, first of all, beautifully and elegantly sung. Congratulations. Yes.
Thank you.
So tell me, what comes to mind when you listen to this recording? Can you tell me a little bit about the preparation of the aria?
Sure. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is whenever I listen back to a recording of me singing, some of the adrenaline rush of that moment comes back. So that's always a fun emotional reminder to sing that piece. That piece in particular is the conversation between the soloist and the cellist. So thinking back, listening now and thinking back to that moment was just how to bring that conversation come to life from the page. And I feel like, when the vocal part starts having melismas, you're kind of mimicking what the cello's been doing underneath you the entire time, and just there's a playfulness there.
Yes, absolutely. And you're also easily and fluidly moving through the melismas.
Yes.
How did you approach that in terms of breathing, in terms of pacing yourself and your support?
I think singers talk about support a lot, and I think something we all focus on during melismas is the budgeting of air, because there's certain parts of each individual's voice that might need more support to stay even. And so it's spending time with those melismas and those lines of just understanding how it fits into your own personal voice. And then on top of that, it's making it come to life with a conversation and emphasizing different parts of the notes, because when you're doing that many notes in a row, it can sound just like scales if you don't shape it or phrase it. And the shaping and phrasing plays a huge part into how you breathe as well. It helps you manage and budget your breath during those phrases as well. And so it's a lot of slow work at first. You can't start singing those types of passages at speed. So it's a longer process of just sitting with those long scale-like passages and taking the time to learn each fine step in between each note and getting it into your voice.
Absolutely. Did that change when you started rehearsing with a cellist, or could you pretty much do what you set out to do?
I think a little bit of both. Like, I was ready on my end as she was on hers, and then you learn something different when you come together with another musician and how they perceive a phrase or how they approach a cadence. And so that's where the conversation comes in of, do you mimic or reply to someone else's phrasing? And that's where the fun conversation comes in. So I think we were both well prepared for the piece, and then we just got to have fun with it.
Fantastic. Now, another aspect of Baroque music is, our listeners may know this, that Baroque music is generally performed at 415 hertz versus the modern tuning of 440 or higher, depending on the instrument or the orchestra. Your aria is sitting lower in your voice. Is this half step lower a blessing or a curse?
For me personally, it's a bit of a curse. I am a high mezzo-soprano. My voice loves to blossom on and above the staff, and so when I learn a piece like this, because I don't always have instruments that can easily transpose, I will learn it in modern tuning, and then I will transpose it myself to get it into my voice at a lower key. But when I'm first learning a piece, my mind isn't quick enough to transpose at the same time as learning a phrase.
Yes.
So I leave that a little bit later. But it's such a different feeling, and it kind of changes how you feel while singing the piece, because it does sit lower. Sometimes for me, I find a gravitas to the piece when I start moving it down into the lower tuning, which I find really interesting. And it's really fun to look at a piece that if you didn't know anything about music, you would perceive it one way, and then realize this one small difference of tuning everything a half step lower changes how it sounds and how it feels.
It has a lot of gutsy and earthy sound to it.
Yes, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Earthy is a good word for it.
Yes. Could you tell us a little bit about your favorite style? Do you have one? And if so, what is it?
Oh, I have too many favorite styles. I love I love opera. I love singing it. It is both a challenging and relaxing thing for me to sing, as far as it's just what my voice does naturally well. And so I love singing romantic composers, Puccini, Rossini, all of them. But I love Baroque music. I was a string player in my past life, in college and high school. So I feel like when I delve into Baroque music, I get to bring that side of me of chamber music to working on the music and in the piece, whether it's in the chorus or as a solo, because the chorus in Baroque music is treated very much like instruments. And so understanding how that all comes together is really fun for me.
It makes a lot of sense what you're saying, because when I listen to you singing this aria that we just heard, your voice sounds very much like an instrument and like a string player, very much connected to the string, and in your case, to the breath.
Well, thank you. That's my goal. I'm so glad that can be heard.
Yes.
Yeah, I discovered in high school, I was at a choir camp and we were delving into a Vivaldi piece, and it was one of the first few Vivaldi pieces. Sorry, I was at a choir camp. I don't know if I said string camp. Went to both. I was that nerd in high school. We were singing a Vivaldi piece, and I realized when everyone around me was commenting, they're like, "Oh, you really understand how these melismas go. What are you thinking?" And I was like, "Oh, I play these all the time on violin and viola, so they just make sense to me." When I approach melismas, I think of it as a string player. I think of my chamber music side as an inner voice string player. I played viola all through college, so I was in a string quartet, and so understanding how all the other instruments and voices are happening around me and how we feed into each other in the conversation that happens, I definitely like to bring that side of me, which I don't always get to use, into my Baroque singing, especially in the solo pieces and in Baroque Chorus Week at Princeton.
That's wonderful. And that's also proof that it takes much more than a beautiful voice to be a great singer, and you really have to be a great musician after all.
Yes, yes you do.
Now let me ask you, you are a regular with the Princeton Festival, and we really love to have you with us every time you can make it. Can you tell our audience what it is that makes you come back to perform with us year after year?
Yes. I've been at the Princeton Festival, I think, for 4 years now. My first production was Peter Grimes. And I established some really wonderful friendships with people in the chorus and the staff. Like it definitely feels like a family and a community. And then getting to know audience members on top of that, it just makes it fun. And I worked for a lot of really nice companies, but hands down the nicest company I've ever worked for, and feeling valued as a musician and a person and an individual, and being able to go get dinners and drinks after rehearsals with staff and other singers. It's just fun to have a few weeks of spending time with your peers and not being distracted by sometimes other work that's happening at home. But I think just the entire atmosphere of the festival, of having such a positive energy and always excited to work and excited for the projects.
And we're so excited to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be back.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, before we get to the end of this interview, let's have some fun with some rapid fire questions. Don't overthink, just tell me the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Haydn or Scarlatti?
Haydn.
Violin or viola?
Oh man. Viola.
Record player or smartphone?
Record player.
Bebop or cool jazz?
Cool jazz.
Milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Dark chocolate.
Fast food or 7-course menu?
Oh. Fast food. I don't have time for a 7-course menu.
Yes, you're a busy singer. Mountain or beach?
Mountain.
Well, thank you so much. That was certainly fun. And
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for speaking with me today. And thanks to all of you who tuned in. Be sure to visit our website at www.princetonfestival.org to learn more about upcoming events as well as ways on how to support the festival. Please join us again next time for another exciting episode in our series. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.